Hey everyone, Drew back again with the deciding Game 3 between Scheu and Kyle Sucevich. If you didn't watch Game 1 or 2, this is a Typhlosion mirror match. Carl won Game 1 decisively against Kyle's supportless hand, and Kyle won Game 2 with a 3 plus power Flare Destroy to KO a Reshiram after he ran out of his own Reshirams. Alright, so Carl gets to go first since he lost Game 2. Chooses to start off with the Cyndaquil and benches a Reshiram. It'll be interesting to see what he grabs with this communication. I didn't quite catch his hand. I don't suspect he has a collector since he chose to use communication so fast, and yep, that appears to be the case. Benches a Cleffa. Like I said in the previous game, this seems to be the downfall between Carl's build of the deck compared with Kyle's build. He doesn't play the number of draw supporters or draw period that you would see in a normal Typhlosion build, and his hand is indeed 3 energy and a junk arm left, so he does have to eke here. And he stays asleep. And once again he turns the Cleffa the wrong way. Someday he'll learn which way sleep is. Alright, so Kyle started off with a Reshiram. It's a pretty good starter as long as you don't have to eke. Waiting for Carl to finish up shuffling. It's always good to have a well randomized deck. Alright, so he top decks the Cyndaquil, that's pretty good. And has to use a Sharon, which nets him 2 fire and a Typhlosion Prime. Pretty decent start for Kyle. Not the best, he obviously didn't have a collector, but it doesn't appear to be that bad for him. Cleffa stays asleep again, which is a bad sign for Carl. If he had drawn a bad hand with that eke, it appears like he got a pretty good one. I think I saw a collector and a Juniper, so he has the tools to get what he needs. There's a rare candy and a communication, so that is a pretty awesome eke hand. Just what you'd like to see for Carl. Probably like to see him collector first there. It's not really a big deal. And he does grab the Typhlosion. And shuffles for a while. Not really a big fan of the shuffling between actions if you're going to go back into your deck like I believe Carl's going to do with Collector. Now he has a little bit of a decision here. Does he want to Juniper or Collector? In his build, I would say maybe Juniper's the play because he doesn't play Vulpix. It's not really important for him to get another basic in play. He doesn't have to get a Vulpix down, but Collector is probably the right play here. You get another Cyndaquil and another Reshiram into play, which is what you want to see with this deck. And that'll enable him to see what he top decks next turn. He does have a Junk Arm. Maybe he'll be able to Junk Arm before the Juniper, getting rid of that Horsey, which is not too useful in this matchup. And he saw Kyle not have the greatest start. He didn't Collector or anything, so he has to suspect that Kyle's has a pretty mediocre hand and probably will not be able to do an incredible amount of damage next turn. He doesn't have any fires in the discard pile yet. And obviously only 2 Cyndaquils and no Vulpixes. Alright, so he goes ahead and passes. Not much he can do there. He didn't have his one switch. And the Cleffa stays asleep yet again. Alright, looks like Kyle drew a Collector. Should probably grab a Vulpix, a Cyndaquil, and a Reshiram. I saw the Vulpix and the Cyndaquil, but he's looking through his deck a lot now, which is not a good sign for Kyle. He only plays the 3 Reshiram, so if 2 happen to be prized here, which is what it's looking like. That's a horrible sign, and it turns his alright start into a horrible start. You can never win with 2 Reshiram prized. 1 Reshiram is not going to do the job for you, and it does indeed look like 2 Reshirams are prized. He's going to need to draw a lot of rescue energies this game if he wants to have any hope of winning. That is a horrible sign for Kyle. But he's going to soldier on. Gusts up the Typhlosion, hoping to stall a little bit. Maybe he can get a KO on this Typhlosion and hope that Carl's hand's horrible and he's not able to get another Typhlosion up. Unfortunately, we know he has a Juniper in that hand, which will enable him to draw into more cards. Now he attaches before the Juniper, which is a misplay. He didn't have any fires in his discard, so we would like to see him Juniper that fire away, so when he draws more fire off the Juniper, he can Afterburner the one he discarded and then attach. He's kind of wasting an attachment right here, which we know Kyle has 2 Reshiram prize, so it's probably not going to come back to bite him. Gets the second Typhlosion into play and Quilava, so Carl is firing off on all cylinders now. Here he tries to attach a second fire to the Typhlosion, and then when they tell him he attached already, he says Afterburner. I'm not sure what was going on there, but the situation was rectified. So because of that slight misplay on Carl's side, Kyle's actually going to be able to KO this Typhlosion, which is great for him if he had more Reshirams. The first prize is obviously great for this matchup. He was hoping to get a Reshiram out that prize, and he must have been pretty disappointed seeing that Carnivine. The Carnivine is for Trainer Lock decks. It has attacks similar to Bellsprout. It brings up a Pokemon. It's not useful at all in this matchup, unfortunately, and not what you want to see off a prize. So Carl promotes the Cleffa, the free retreat. He actually benched another Reshiram, which, as I said in game 2, I hate to see 3 Reshiram in play. You only ever need 2, assuming you have 2 Typhlosions, which the third Reshiram takes up a spot that could be a Typhlosion. It's just not a good play in my opinion. You would rather have a third Cyndaquil 100% of the time. Not sure what Carl's thinking about. He grabbed what appeared to be a switch and discarded a bunch of supporters. He has another Juniper in his hand, so he doesn't really need those supporters. I think he only has 1 fire in his discard right now, so he's gonna have to just outrage, put some damage on that Reshiram. He blocked himself from getting a Kingdra into play, which is not too big of a deal in this matchup because the Afterburner damage will usually put the Reshirams at a couple damage counters, and he has to feel like Kyle's hand's not too strong. He hasn't, last turn he didn't get a Typhlosion in play, so he has to figure he didn't have the goods to get a Typhlosion, which is indeed the case. Kyle's trying everything to stall, grabs that catcher, brings up the Reshiram, knowing Carl doesn't have any fires in his discard. Unfortunately, we know Carl grabbed that switch off the Sage, so yeah, he uses it right away. So it was just not, it turned out to not be a good play for Kyle, and he won't be able to stall any more turns, and his 1 Reshiram is gonna go down, and that'll probably be the game. There's no way Kyle can come back with no Reshirams in this matchup. They are the key. He cannot one-hit KO with Typhlosion. He can maybe KO that Cleffa down the road. Hope he gets a Reshiram off his prizes, but who knows how long down the road's gonna be. So he has a Typhlosion in his hand, he's gonna get one of those out. Other than that though, he really doesn't have much else. He has a communication. I'm not sure what he has even left in his deck to grab with that. He can maybe grab another Quilava and get a second Typhlosion out next turn. But like I said, Blue Flare or Flare Destroy cannot compete with Blue Flare. Chooses the Afterburner to have Vulpix. He can bring it up next turn after this Cyndaquil gets knocked out, and has the option to retreat at that point to something else. Carl goes, if he chooses to Afterburner twice to this Reshiram, he doesn't even have the Blue Flare anymore, he can just outrage for KOs. All Kyle really has in play besides that Typhlosion is basics, so 60 damage is the magic number right now for Carl. So Kyle top decks a Pichu there. Pichu's marginally useful. He can actually stall a little bit if it chooses to stay asleep after Playground. And maybe he can get something going this way. So we will see a Playground, it looks like. I don't know what basics are in Kyle's deck, but he's gonna go ahead and look at least. I think I saw a Vulpix, which is probably the only thing left with two Reshrams prized. We've seen all four Cyndaquils. Alright, so he will go ahead and stay asleep, so he's looking to buy a turn here. Carl goes down top decks a Sage. If he hits a catcher off here, it would be bad news for Kyle. Thankfully for Kyle, he does not. And Carl grabs just a Reshiram and a Fire off that. Those were the two useful cards off that Sage. And Kyle forces a pass here. Wow. If this Pichu stays asleep for many turns, who knows what could happen. This is game 3, so time becomes a factor at some point. You don't know when time's gonna be called. I don't see how Kyle ever takes a prize lead though, is the sad part. Carl's field is just full of fire energies. Pretty much anything can be powered up at this point. There's no threats of stalling out of Kyle. He can't just bring something up to stall for turns. As we saw, Carl play Switch. And looks like Carl actually top decked a catcher this turn, so he will get around this Pichu and go up another prize on Kyle. I would have liked to see him bring up the Cyndaquil there actually. The Vulpix is probably the most useless card on Kyle's field. Maybe even the Quilava. The Quilava is probably actually the right catcher there, but it really doesn't matter. See what Kyle top decks. Catcher, which like I said is not going to help him anytime soon. He can go ahead and KO that Cleffa this turn with Quilava's Flare though, if he wants to. It's really not going to get the job done. He will play this through, it looks like. There's really no point in conceding game 3 unless you really feel like there's no way you're going to win and have had enough. There's the second Typhlosion. He actually has one fire in his discard pile, so he can't even attack with Flare Destroy. Just waiting on Kyle here. With his back against the wall, he's really thinking about his options, and he chooses to just playground again. With no fire in the discard pile, it's pretty much the only play he has, and he can hope he stays asleep again. Which he does. That Pichu likes to sleep. Alright. Looks like Carl has got another catcher. Not sure if he top decked that or was from his prizes. And he goes up yet another prize. So Kyle is going to be able to Afterburner twice here. Get a Flare Destroy off if he chooses to. And he will use the catcher, I imagine. Just deciding which Pokemon he wants to bring up. So he's going to try to stall again. I don't know what he's hoping for here. And uses Flare Destroy. Carl definitely has 2 fire in his discard, I believe. He discarded a ton to that Sage. He should be able to retreat here. Yep. And this Typhlosion's gonna go down too. Yeah, alright, so Kyle finally concedes. There was no chance that game. It's a tough way to lose with your prizes, but I mean, Kyle won in top 32 versus AJ. AJ had a bunch of Reshiram's prized, and it's just bound to happen at some point. You can't have everything you need every game. So Carl Scheu moves on, and we'll continue on to the top 4. And Kyle Sucevich's day is done. We will be back with more coverage for you folks, and I'll see you then.